Okay, great.
Yep.
Well, to start us off, could you just state your name and your occupation?
Sure. My name is Rob Swearingen. I am a state representative for the 34th Assembly District, which is Oneida County and Weedless County up in the Northwoods.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And I want to start with just kind of a fun one. If there are people that end up watching this that are out of state and aren't as familiar with Wisconsin, can you kind of summarize what the bar and drinking culture means to us here in Wisconsin?
Oh, it's integral with almost everything we do. Wisconsin is unique in the fact that we like to celebrate. And so, whether it's with distilled spirits or a ice cold Miller Lite, we do a lot of celebrating in Wisconsin.
And then is there do you well, I won't get into I guess your favorite types of celebrations because to each their own, and
Right.
um but how important are the sales of alcohol and tobacco in Wisconsin?
Oh, well, hospitality in general in the state of Wisconsin, I believe, is probably the number two biggest employer in general in the state of Wisconsin. So it's right behind like logging, for instance. Hospitality in Wisconsin is a huge, huge economic driver.
Gotcha. And is hospitality that's like mostly restaurant service kind of bars, correct?
Correct. Yeah, bars and restaurants, hotels sometimes, just venues in general.
Gotcha. And in my understanding, you kind of oversee a lot of that throughout the entire state.
In my current capacity, you mean?
Yes.
Well, the committee that I chair is the Assembly Committee on State Affairs, and typically any alcohol bills or come to that committee, the speaker would refer them to my committee to address. Yeah.
Understood. And yeah, I do later on want to talk about AB 304 and kind of your involvement with that. But I want to kind of take a step back and could you kind of just simply explain what the Bar Tavern League is for people that might not know?
Yeah, sure. So it dates back to just after Prohibition, right? So when Prohibition ended, the Tavern League started in 1935. And I'm guessing. I mean, obviously, I wasn't around, but I'm guessing that the reason that they got together is they were probably wildly crazy that somehow alcohol could be outlawed for prohibition. So I think this band of tavern keepers got together, and I'm not sure which specific county. I think it was one of the counties down in the southern part of the state that actually formed the association. But I know that like Oneida County, for instance, was a member of the Tavern League shortly thereafter, so like 1938, for instance. So
Wow.
now, of course, the league boasts well over 5,000 members and affiliates, and people that just enjoy their association with the Tavern League.
Okay. And can you kind of explain to me what your roles were with, because I know I saw that you were the former president of the Tavern League and you're also involved with the Oneida County Tavern League. How did you get involved with that? And can you tell me about your involvement with the organization throughout the years?
Yeah, well, we'll go back to when I graduated high school in 1981. I was 18 years old, and the drinking age at that time was 18.
Hmm.
So one of my first jobs right out of high school was tending bar for a lady. Her name was Judy Seifert. She owned a place called the Hodag Bar in Rhinelander, and so that was my first bartending gig. And at the time, Judy, the owner of the tavern, was actually one of the vice presidents of the local Oneida County Tavern League. So
Hmm.
I got introduced to the Tavern League through her, and as years went on, I got my own bar, and then I got my own supper club, and I worked my way up to the Tavern League on a local level, and then eventually got elected to the state board. And after being on the board for several years, I threw my hat in the ring to be the state president.
Uh-oh. There we go.
All right, what the hell happened?
I have no idea. You froze for a second and then I was talking to a wall. I was like, what happened, Rob? But I'm
Yeah.
glad you made it back.
Okay. So where where
um,
did where did we leave off?
I you left off with you threw your hat or you threw your name in the hat, got lucky, and then made it. So I'm just at the point when you became president of the Tavern League.
Okay. All right. Can we just pick up there?
Yeah, if you just kind of want to maybe briefly re-summarize, you could probably start from when you had your restaurant and bar and go from there.
Okay. Yeah. So well, let me back up. Okay. So I after let me start. Let me get my thoughts here again.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. Um, so anyway, I got elected from when I worked my way up through the Oneida County Tavern League. I eventually got elected to the state of Wisconsin board of directors for the TLW. And ultimately, I threw my hat in the ring to be their state president. I was fortunate enough to be elected by my peers as the president of the Tavern League for 5 years. And it was ultimately the Tavern League that stung me with the political bug. So when I left the Tavern League, I threw my hat in the ring for state assembly, and here I am today.
Okay. And what was that experience like, just kind of working your way through the Tavern League? And then what was it like as president?
Well, I'll tell you, the Tavern League is basically broken up into almost by the county, right? So there's roughly around 70 leagues that make up the 5,000 members of the Tavern League.
Wow.
And so, as president, one of my responsibilities, or one of the things I wanted to do, was make sure that I visited all the leagues and get to the meetings. We were fortunate enough to have two conventions a year, which is always very a great way to rub elbows and meet the membership. But to actually get out to the individual leagues is sometimes much more productive, because you get to meet members that support you, that you've never met or don't typically make it to a convention or a caucus.
Okay. That's very interesting. And can you speak a little bit on to how the tavern's kind of mission and involvement, with local businesses, with government, has changed throughout the years?
Yeah, so bars, restaurants, taverns change really almost weekly. The business changes. I can tell you this, that tavern keepers in the state of Wisconsin are amongst the hardest working people out there in any segment. To succeed in the tavern business, you have to work your place. It's easy to get into the business, but it's much harder to make sure that you're successful in business. If you think you're going to buy a tavern and just go out and be the personal PR guy, that's not how it works. The customers want to see you behind the bar if they're going to spend their money there. But the league itself, again, anytime there's something going on in a community, so if a member of the community has a tragic accident or some sort of a disease, they always turn to the tavern to host a fundraiser. And so taverns are really integral to every small community because that's the gathering place. A lot of political discussions can be had there. Back in the day, you'd register your deer there at a tavern after the hunt, so you had bragging rights. And these things, back then you could smoke at a tavern as well. A lot of things changes. So tavern keepers, hardworking. I can also tell you they're very patriotic. They get behind honor flights. They get behind anything to do with our veterans. Tavern League members are very patriotic, hardworking people.
Okay. That's very neat to hear. And kind of to that, I know they're very involved with, communities, and they kind of extend a hand towards local businesses at kind of that local level. But then when you kind of get towards more of the overarching, is there typically and specifically something that, the super PAC looks for when contributing to certain candidates or different issues and such?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, it goes with really any industry, but when the Tavern League is looking to support somebody, it certainly would have to be somebody that agrees with their views, right? In terms of what's good for the hospitality industry. Certainly, drunk driving laws. Back in the day, the smoking ban was an issue. Anything that would directly affect how the day-to-day operations go of a tavern. And that's why you have, governmental affairs people that work for them. So because tavern keepers are busy working their own place, they don't really get a chance to get to the Capitol very often. Although some of the largest lobbying days have been with the Tavern League in the state capitol.
Huh. Do you have any insight into that? What do those days kind of look like?
Oh, they like to lobby once a year. They bring everybody to Madison just to show a presence. But back when we were fighting the statewide smoking ban, I think it was probably the largest lobby day in the Capitol for an association back in the day. Well over 1,000 people gathered in Madison.
Wow.
Because of the statewide smoking ban.
And can you remind me really quick? Because I don't think I was in Wisconsin quite when the smoking ban ordeal happened.
Yeah, right. So Governor Doyle was the governor at the time, and it was one of his goals was to eliminate public smoking. And back in the day, the Tavern League's position was, look, leave it up to the independent operator if they want to allow smoking at all, because our customers were smart enough to realize that they wanted to go into a place that wanted to have smoking. And that seemed to be like a reasonable thing. Well, ultimately, the Tavern League was at the bargaining table when the statewide smoking ban was negotiated. And they negotiated really a 1-year grace period that allowed taverns to get ready for what was happening in a year later. So the transition, because of the Tavern League, the transition to its members was a lot easier.
Okay. Thank you for filling me in on that. That's very interesting. That's something I'll have to look into out of personal interest too. Um, and I want to talk now a little bit about the Assembly Bill 304 because just reading into it is very interesting to me and kind of the Tavern League's involvement in the creation of the Division of Alcohol Beverages at the DOR. Can you explain this a little bit and then explain how this is different from the past?
Yeah, sure. First, it's the Division of Alcohol Beverage Enforcement.
Enforcement.
So,
Thank you. Sorry
right,
about that.
yeah, and this in Wisconsin we operate under a three-tier system, right? We have a manufacturer, so whether it's the people that make the spirits or brew the beer, that's the manufacturer. They tier it down. The next tier would be the wholesaler, so
Hmm.
that's who sells it to the tavern keeper, and then the tavern keeper, of course, is the retailer that is the end deliverer to the customer. So the alcohol laws of Chapter 125 in the state of Wisconsin really all three tiers like to see their tier kind of get what they want, but this was one of the few times over many years, 30 years maybe, that all three tiers came together with a solid package that they could all support. So they had a coalition. So whether it was the craft beer people, whether it was the craft distillers, whether it was the Tavern League, whether it was the grocers, the restaurant association, they all came together and supported this package. And one of the problems with it was enforcement. The frustration on all three tiers is when they went to the Department of Revenue, they could never quite get a consistent answer from people who were working at the Department of Revenue. And the reason was nobody really had alcohol as their priority in the division. So we're happy to say that we now are going to create the Alcohol Enforcement Division, and we're hoping we'll get that consistency that we used to have way back when.
Gotcha. And why is that important now?
All three tiers were asking for it. They all kind of get along, but they also don't get along. So it's an interest. There's a lot of personalities in alcohol in the state of Wisconsin, and they all requested that we have this division.
So the Tavern League is trying to be the responsible parent, or kind of the parent organization that's trying to, help keep the peace. Maybe is that a
Well,
good way of kind of?
I wouldn't say parent, but certainly one of the spokes on the wheel. Yeah, I wouldn't put one above any of the others, but certainly they want to be active and at the table.
Okay. And part of this bill was just kind of funny to me, and I'm curious to your thoughts. And there's one clause towards the end that, simply put, it says during the 2024 National Political Convention in Milwaukee, the licensed alcohol retailers can stay open 2 hours later from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Thanks to this clause. How and why did this come to be?
So actually, this is how long we're working on this package. We actually did the same thing for the Democratic convention that didn't happen in Milwaukee a couple of years ago. So Milwaukee County hospitality, or not just Milwaukee County, it's that whole area of the state. Because the convention was going to be so massive for the Democrats and now the Republicans, the hospitality sector, bars and restaurants, asked if they could extend their hours so that after the convention is over with for the day, the convention goers can take advantage of a little nightlife. So it's not unusual. It is unusual, but this is the second time we've done it. But this time it actually went through for the RNC.
Oh, wow. And was it successful last time it worked through? Was there good numbers?
The package itself got stalled because of COVID. It did pass through the Assembly. It did make it through the Senate, but the DNC hours were actually in the older version of this package.
Oh, that's so interesting. Well, that's very fun, I'm sure. And you said that it was these counties that were requesting it, right? The hospitality industry really wanted it. Okay.
Right. Yeah, especially Milwaukee, but it went all the way down to the Illinois border, really. That whole area of the southern half of the state. Anywhere convention goers were going to book up the hotel rooms, those contiguous counties wanted to be able to extend those hours.
Okay, that's so interesting. And I'm just curious, why don't some people throughout this state support the Tavern League?
That's an age-old question, and as a former president, it was something that used to always frustrate me. So some people just simply don't join; they don't see the value in it. But the reality is, whether they join or not, the Tavern League is going to keep doing what they do, and these people who don't join actually get the benefit of the end result, right? Because the Tavern League is really the only trade association of its kind, not only in the state of Wisconsin, but in the United States, that has the interest of alcohol as their top priority, right? They care for their license holders. So the restaurants may also represent fast food restaurants, but the Tavern League represents the alcohol sector.
Okay. And what are some of these benefits for, just the average person? Because we talked about, how it benefits taverns, but for, just thinking of the person that might say, "Oh, I don't like the Tavern League. I don't like what they're doing." How would that benefit them? What would you have to say to that person?
Yeah, the Tavern League gets accused of not caring about drunk driving laws, for instance. And the Tavern League has never actually opposed any stiffer penalties on drunk driving. But what the biggest fear that we're worried about is the social drinker. Nobody wants to pick on the guy who went out and had a fish fry, a couple of Miller Lights with his fish fry, or some gal who wanted a glass or two of wine. So we're always really worried about the social drinker, that people want to go out and just have a good time. Clearly, there are those people that need help. That you get the 3, 4, 5, DUI offenses, or somebody with a consistent high blood alcohol level. Those are the people that these laws are designed to be affected by. And it's an ongoing debate, but the Tavern League gets accused of blocking those all the time, when really people would actually step back and look at the legislation. You'll see that the Tavern League really isn't involved in those different ones, or in most cases maybe even support it.
Hmm. And do you think, or do you or the Tavern League think that the rate of alcohol consumption in Wisconsin is a problem or not a problem?
Well, like I say, the drinking culture in the state of Wisconsin has been going on long before I was around, and
Mm.
the Tavern League's been around probably almost that long, I should say. But I think that Wisconsin sometimes gets a bit of a black eye. In some cases, we're not a whole lot different than others. And if you look, when those numbers come out, Wisconsin's usually up there, sure, but it's not. I don't think that it's as alarming as some might think it is.
Okay. And yeah, this is something that I tried reaching out to the Tavern League themselves, and I didn't get much back. I left my phone number and talked to a very kind clerk. But is it true that the Tavern League has lobbied against the legalization of cannabis before?
Yeah, no, that's another misnomer. And actually, that was just settled in the media just recently. No, the Tavern League has zero input, actually zero stake in the marijuana issue. They've stayed moot on the issue. It's really not their wheelhouse. But again, they get accused of blocking it, and it's just not true.
I'm very glad to hear you say that, because that's been one of the most speculative things I've seen online and all over the place, is that the Tavern League has lobbied against it. They're one of, public enemy number one, and I've never seen any substantial kind of evidence to support that claim. I could see how some people get to that conclusion maybe, but so have they ever had a history of that at all, or no?
No, but you're right. And for some reason, they get pointed out as the people that are blocking it. It's untrue. If you go look at the bills, you'll see the Tavern League is not even listed as up or down. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, so they just alcohol. They don't have any official stance on legalization or anything like that.
Nope, nothing. That's not an issue that they've involved themselves in.
Okay, very interesting. And, is there anything else that I'm kind of not hitting to that you'd want to kind of tell me and everyone else about you, the Tavern League, kind of, what they do that's important on a day-to-day basis that I haven't touched on?
I think that it's important to note, and they try to get their message out, that they really are a big part of the community. But one of the biggest things that they're most proud of is this, when they started the Safe Ride Home program. The Safe Ride Home program is actually funded not by state taxpayer dollars. It's actually funded by drunk drivers that get arrested. So part of their fine goes to the Safe Ride program. Now that was just increased in AB 304, so more monies will be helping out the Safe Ride program. Safe Ride programs are operated by the local Tavern Leagues in the county, so it's almost statewide, but it's not actually everywhere. But they're very proud of their Safe Ride Home program, and it's something that it's a real feather in their hat. And in AB 304, something new is if you are not a member of the Tavern League, or if you're going to be a new license holder with AB 304, you automatically now get a 6-month grace period so that you can take advantage of the Safe Ride Home program, even if you're not a Tavern League member.
Very interesting. Okay, that's very, very neat to know. I mean, this is exciting stuff, and I wish that it was kind of at the forefront of more of our news that we see on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And I just have one more quick question for you. If you could just kind of give an elevator pitch to someone, that might be from the West Coast or the East Coast on, why to come visit Wisconsin and support the Tavern League and come visit our historic or even more contemporary taverns, what are you telling them to come out and experience the culture?
You bet, and you hit it right on the button. Wisconsin has a great culture of celebrating, and it includes a few ice cold Miller Lights, or a Miller High Life, or a Kugels, and people enjoy it across the state. And the best thing about the state of Wisconsin is the brandy old fashioned sweet, right? That's our signature cocktail, we I think we put brandy old fashions on the map. The state of Wisconsin has got a rich culture of having a good time. And whether it's the Green Bay Packers, whether it's the Milwaukee Brewers, the Tavern League operates in the background. It's the membership of the Tavern League that makes up what is the Tavern League. So we hope that most taverns are members of the Tavern League, the Tavern League operates as the umbrella in the background.
Awesome. And do you think there's ever space for, legal cannabis to enter this kind of phase of celebration, or is that not something you're in support of?
Jake, great question. I don't know. I think that the legislature itself, I think there is some movement on medical marijuana here in the state of Wisconsin. I don't know. We're as close as we've ever been. Whether it makes it over the goal line, I don't know yet. There's still more discussion to be made about what it's going to look like, where it's going to be dispensed from. But at some point, I don't see a whole lot of difference here with whether it's beverage alcohol or whether it's cannabis. I don't know. But I think we're a long way from recreational.
Okay. And do you have any thoughts on why that is really quickly? I don't want to spend too much time on that, but
yeah, no, I just think that I don't think that the current legislature, I don't think there's a real stomach for it. I think that the public has certainly spoken out about the medical end of it. I think that, finally Republicans are listening to that, and we'll see where it goes. But I don't see recreational in the real near future, but that's just my opinion.
okay. And just a fun one to kind of close things out. I don't want to take up much more of your time, but what is an ideal fish fry for you? You have an open Friday, you get out of the Capitol building early. What are you doing? Where are you going?
Well, I'll tell you what, I was in the restaurant business for 30 years. And if you're not doing a real good Friday night fish fry, or if you're not serving a great prime rib on Saturday night, or if you're not doing some roasted chicken on Sunday, you're not getting it, right? So now that I'm out of the business, my wife and I have kind of discovered what weekends are all about, and we enjoy going out for a great Friday night fish fry with, like I say, a nice cold Miller High Life to set off the atmosphere, and we just enjoy it. So for me, it's always a good piece of haddock, lightly breaded with some French fries and some potato salad and coleslaw.
Okay, there you go. I'm happy to hear it. And is there just anything else you'd want to add while we're here? That's pretty much my whole list of questions for you.
No, I think you got it all, Jake.
Awesome. Well, Representative, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate you helping inform me on kind of all the Tavern League does today, and hopefully other people can learn from this conversation as well. All right. Well, thank you so much again for taking the time. I really appreciate the conversation.
You bet. Shoot me a link when it's all put together, would you?
Absolutely will do. Thank you so much,
right,
Representative.
You bet.
Take
Have a
care.
great afternoon.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.